So I recently watched a live stream by JJ McCullough, very popular Canadian YouTuber. Um, and I disagreed with just everything he said. He, I just don't, he's just got everything wrong. I don't know how you could get everything so wrong. It's just amazing to me. Uh, I don't know if it's a case of him being Canadian and getting just a completely different set of news, or uh, that he's a conservative. And JJ is a conservative. He's open about that. JJ's live stream was about the American election and why people should not vote for Donald Trump. Um, and he ended up saying things like the only reason to vote for Trump is because he's a racist, and if you vote for Trump, you're a racist. And it's like, no, there are plenty of reasons not to vote for Kamala Harris. Uh, there are a number of people on the ballot other than Harris. So, yeah, there are reasons not to vote for Harris other than you're a racist. I'm not a racist. I'm not voting for Kamala Harris. But I broken down JJ's main complaints into three categories. Uh, A, Trump is a criminal. B, policies. Kamala Harris has progressive policies that some people should at least like. And C, the economic situation in the United States is at least improving. So voting for the party in power makes sense. Okay, so let's start off with the first one. JJ is correct that Donald Trump is a criminal. He was convicted of too many crimes to count, not the least of which is rape. Although he's never been criminally convicted of that. That was a civil case, at least not to my knowledge. Though Donald Trump is a felon. I'm not sure what felonies he's convicted of off the top of my head. I could find that out. However, Kamala Harris is also a criminal. She's not convicted at this point. However, that has more to do with her position as vice president than anything else. Kamala Harris has knowingly provided weapons and aid to a state that is taking part in a genocide. Under treaties signed by the United States and by the command responsibility precedent set by not only the United States, but also by the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and associated persons are responsible for all crimes taking place in Palestine. So she is responsible for at least 40,000 deaths. At least 40,000. Very likely far more. Kamala Harris has taken no steps to invoke the 25th Amendment. She has not resigned her position as Vice President of the United States. she has not, as JJ McCullough stated, indicated that she would, in her administration, improve the lives of, change policy in her administration and bring about a Palestinian state, or even end the war in Palestine. In fact, every indication is from the Harris campaign is that she would continue providing arms and equipment to the Israeli state to continue the genocide. As of 2 days ago, a prominent Arab American Harris supporter was arrested at a Harris rally in Pennsylvania for no other reason than the fact that he was Arab American. Now, my understanding is he was released not that long ago, but he was arrested simply because he was Arab American. This was on the orders of the Harris campaign. So all indications are that Kamala Harris will be just as genocidal as Joe Biden, if not worse. All indications are that Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are just as genocidal as each other. So yes, Kamala Harris is a criminal, according to international law. Now let's look at U.S. law. What laws has she broken in the U.S.? Well, there's the Leahy Act. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Tony Blinken have all broken this law repeatedly. Objectively, this law states that the U.S. government shall not provide weapons to any government taking part in ethnic cleansing whatsoever. Kamala Harris has repeatedly provided weapons to a government taking part in ethnic cleansing, and has suffered no consequences, no loss of power, no loss of privilege, and has not been removed from her position. So yes, she is a criminal. She should be tried, convicted, and sent to prison. Okay, moving on to her policies. Kamala Harris's policies are... So McCullough states that she has progressive policies that should appeal to everyone. I have an entire video that goes over all of Kamala Harris's policies and why they're sort of meh at best. But a number of them are actually actively harmful. I'll just go over a couple. Two are the $15 minimum wage and how it will interact with the Affordable Care Act. So, Kamala Harris has stated that she will enact a $15 minimum wage, or she will pass a $15 minimum wage, ensuring that the minimum wage across the nation is $15. Now, according to the Biden-Harris Department of Housing and Urban Development, there is not a single county in the United States in which a person working 40 hours a week for $15 an hour can afford rent. Not a single county. Now, that being said, the majority of people making $15 an hour are not receiving medical insurance from their employers. They're receiving medical insurance from the ACA, i.e. Medicaid and Medicare. And those programs have income limits. Usually those income limits are between about $1,500 and $2,000. Guess what? If you make $2,001 in a month, you no longer can afford your medications. So, take me for example. If I make $2,001 in a month, I have to pay something like $5,400 for my medications. How am I supposed to do that? That's just impossible. That would be impossible. And that's on top of my rent, which would be another $1,700. And then you got things like car insurance and rent insurance or renter's insurance, all this other stuff. Internet. So no, that's not useful to anyone. Moving on to her allowing Medicare and Medicaid to negotiate on 10 more drugs, on the 10 most popular drugs. Or I'll share another personal story. Generalissimo Joe, General Joe, Genocide Joe, he allowed Medicare and Medicaid to negotiate on 10 drugs a couple of years ago, and the drug company decided that they wanted to raise prices on I think it was Lantus. I'm pretty sure it was Lantus, which is a diabetic drug. It's an insulin drug. My sister has diabetes, and guess what? She could no longer afford to get her insulin every month. She had to save up and buy it every other month. And then my sister passed away in January of last year. Thank you, Joe Biden. Also, I found out that my medications became more expensive because, the drug companies, they don't want to lose money. They're for-profit entities. Turns out there is a policy that Kamala Harris was in favor of, but chose to change in order to seem more moderate. That policy would have solved all of these issues, and it would have provided health insurance to basically all Americans. What policy might that have been? I wonder. Is it Medicare for all? Is it universal health care? And what is that poll at in the United States? Is it between 70 and 80%? So that's a majority position that Kamala Harris is against. So now we're moving on to JJ Abrams, or JJ McCullough's, forgive me, he's not Abrams. Abrams is at least slightly more popular. McCullough's idea that Harris has tacked towards the center, in his words. That's completely wrong and stupid. The idea that accepting ideas from people like Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney is tacking towards the center is, I don't know where that comes from. They are some of the most right-wing nut jobs in the world. These are people who want to go to war with Iran still. These are people who actively, openly support the idea of war with North Korea. They are not the center. They are, cut taxes on all the rich so that trickle-down economics will work better. Tacking towards the center would be providing health care and providing housing to people who need it. That is the center. It's just... So she is not tacking towards the center. She's tacking towards the right to spite herself. And so much so that I think Kamala Harris is actually suppressing her own votes. She's pushing away possible voters. Dumb move on her own part, but whatever. Now, let's move on to economics. JJ McCullough is actually at least partially correct that, he says that the United States is the envy of the world, economically. That's at least partially correct. U.S. has a pretty high GDP right now. The U.S. inflation is the lowest, or one of the lowest in the world. The U.S. unemployment rate is relatively low, although that's somewhat debatable. So the surface level numbers are pretty good, but the underlying numbers just below that are kind of not great. Real wages, so wages compared to inflation, have remained stagnant since the 1970s. So your purchasing power, what you could buy with your paycheck, is basically worthless in 2024. A person, as I've already shown, a person can't afford rent on a full-time job. So, yeah, you should be able to afford rent anywhere on a full-time job. Doesn't matter what the full-time job is. That's a moderate position. You should be able to afford rent and a family on a full-time job. And Harris is at least not adequately addressing those issues. So the U.S. economy, while its GDP is high, its inflation is low, the U.S. brought down its inflation by cranking up unemployment. And the way the Bureau of Labor Statistics keeps statistics basically is well, if you're not looking for a job, or if you're in college, or you're a mother and you have a baby, you don't count as a statistic. That's just, we don't count you. What? That doesn't mean that they don't want a job. That just means that they can't find a job. So these are all important data points that JJ doesn't consider, and I think that makes him an unreliable narrator.